What would you expect a remote village in Kenya, Africa to look like? Most people would expect a sad and dirty place with unhappy children. But when I went there, I experienced something much different. All I saw was lush beauty, expansive views, and happy children. My name is Shawdi Amini, and today I'll be talking about my experience in Africa. Last summer, I traveled with an organization called Kids for Peace all the way to the small village of Mackay in Kenya. Kids for Peace is an organization that creates a safe and peaceful world where everyone is cared and respected for. This was my first time going to Africa, so as you could imagine, I had mixed feelings. But luckily, this experience was illuminating in ways I hadn't anticipated. The summer after my freshman year of high school, I traveled the long 30 hours all the way from LAX to Mackay. And this journey was long, both emotionally and physically. Let me explain. When I got there, I saw how remote this village actually was. There was no electricity, no plumbing, no running water. There were chickens and cows in the street, and there were children walking to their makeshift school. Kids for Peace helped raise the money for the building materials and labor so that when we got there, the school was all built. Our job was to paint the school and put together the supplies for the new classrooms. Today I'll be talking about how anyone can make a difference, and I'll be sharing specifically the stories of 4 children: Kate, Samuel, Maggie, and Albert. When we first got to the school, we had the warmest welcome by hundreds of children and adults. I was overwhelmed and my heart filled. That's where I met Kate. Kate was 10 years old and standing shyly in the corner. I waved at her and she waved back, but didn't approach me. Over the course of the day, she warmed up to me and finally told me her name. Over time on my journey, she became like my little shadow, following me around everywhere I went. I got to see her personality blossom into the kind young girl I now know. One day, I was looking for her at the crowded school, and I saw her running towards the back. I followed, and after a little while, we ended up at a storage shed. She crawled through the small opening, and I followed. She lifted up an old bucket, and underneath revealed a plate of food. Apparently, her mother had saved it from the celebration and put it there for Kate to have. Before taking a bite herself, she offered me some of this food that she gets so rarely. I was inspired by this action. She was giving me something that she never got before she even took some of it herself. This really showed Kate's sensitivity and compassion, and I was inspired by her actions. And then there was Maggie. Maggie was 11 years old and quite the opposite of Kate. She was confident, energetic, and very talkative. When I first met her, she told me that she wanted to become a nurse, and that's why the school was so important to her. She just wanted a place to learn. One day, she invited us to her home, and of course we accepted. When I got there, I had to take a minute to take in the beauty of it. All it was expansive views with wildlife roaming around. When we got there, she introduced me to a younger brother named Samuel. Samuel was 5 years old. He was huddled on the ground with a couple of his friends, looking at something. I peeked in to see what he was looking at, and I saw 5 little marbles. I thought back to all the little things and trinkets in my room, and I felt kind of embarrassed for having asked for the new iPhone, while these children were happy with just 5 little marbles. It was probably what they played for hours a day. But when you think about it from their perspective, it seems like they have everything. In their seemingly bare environment, they're rich in so many ways, and that's why they're so happy. They're not needing more, whether it be an iPhone or marbles. They're good with what they have. They're content. Near the end of my journey, I had a special connection with a 12-year-old boy named Albert. One day at the school, we were doing construction on the playground, so the children weren't allowed in. They were all crowded around the fence. I heard Albert call out politely, while all the other children were saying, "Hello, what is your name? Hello, what is your name?" The only phrase that they knew well. Albert said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question, please?" I walked over to him, and he asked if he could possibly have a piece of paper and a pencil so he could draw something for me. He told me that his father had taught him to draw before he passed away, and now he lived with his grandparents. I told him that I couldn't get him a piece of paper today, but if he came back tomorrow, I would be sure to get him what he needed. And sure enough, there he was the next day. I gave him a notebook and a box of colored pencils, and he sat at a desk and drew for hours, producing page after page. At the end of the day, he returned to me the notebook, almost full of drawings. And they were very good. Each drawing was dedicated to me, signed by Albert. I told him he could keep the notebook, and he seemed sort of surprised, as if he couldn't possibly have such possessions. But after a bit of insisting, he reluctantly took the notebook home. On the last day of my trip in Mackay, he returned with his notebook in hand. He was returning it to me, and he thanked me for letting him draw. I carefully tore out the drawings and returned to him the notebook and the box of colored pencils. He smiled, he put the notebook in his jacket, and was on his way. But before he left, he made sure to tell me that he would look for me next year. This trip to Mackay was a really life-changing experience, and it was eye-opening. Really, I went there to help these children by building them a school, but they ended up helping me by seeing life through their eyes. They were grateful, and they appreciated all that they had. Dalai Lama once said, "The key to happiness is not money and power, but warm-heartedness." I can't lie. These children did live in poverty. But through their eyes, all I saw was lush beauty. They weren't needing more. They lived their life with content. They were happy, they had their family all around, and they smiled often. And in the end, I saw that material possessions aren't important. All you need is a smile and 5 little marbles. Thank you.